Revenge with Karen.
The room stank of burnt coffee and fake enthusiasm. You could practically taste the stale air from the overworked HVAC, humming like it was tired of pretending this place wasn't falling apart. Monica Flores sat through yet another Q3 culture uplift meeting while her screen blinked with something far more important. A cascading timeout error that wasn't just noise. It was a flare, and she'd seen it before, the quiet logs of a legacy dependency so old it might as well have been written in blood. She muted the Zoom call where Brent, the freshly minted VP of Risk Integration, was pitching yet another growth-positive mindset deck to a half-dead audience of senior analysts, and opened the logs again. There it was, line 438. A deprecated call that had just attempted to reroute client metadata through an outdated instance. Patch SynerTech installed last Friday wasn't holding. In fact, it was peeling off like cheap wallpaper in a motel bathroom. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. This wasn't hypothetical. If that call repeated under pressure, which it would, the next time more than 10 clients logged in simultaneously, they'd see not just a slowdown, but a full-on system breach. 3 clients in particular ran live dashboards for medical supply chains. 1 hour of downtime could stall regional hospital deliveries. She didn't panic. Monica had learned long ago that competence in places like SynerTech was suspicious. She assembled the data, charts, logs, predictions, mapped it to current uptime SLAs and built a 3-point memo. She even footnoted the vendor ticket from 2021 where the issue had first been noted and shrugged off as edge case latency. This wasn't just a risk, it was a damn liability hiding in plain sight. She walked into Brent's office, Brent's corner glass coffin, and waited as he finished laughing at some TikTok playing on his phone. He looked up like she was the janitor interrupting his bubble bath. "Monica, hey, you got something?" She handed him the folder. "I need 10 minutes. There's a vulnerability in the legacy risk routing layer that could, okay, hold up." He didn't even open the folder. Just leaned back, placed his fingers behind his head like he was about to raid a reality show audition. "This is DevOps territory, right? It's tied to our vendor stack and routing protocols. Risk owns it on paper, and we've been the point of contact for. Let the boys in DevOps worry about that." He grinned. "You're here to keep culture safe, not scare the clients with ghost stories." "It's not a ghost story," she said quietly. "It's a structural fault, and it won't wait." Leaned forward like he was about to deliver some sage startup wisdom. "Monica, you're a rock star, no doubt, but you gotta learn when to dial it back. These kinds of vibes, they don't scale. We're a growth org now." She left the folder on his desk. He didn't touch it. Back at her desk, Monica reopened her memo and changed the date. She copied it to her personal drive, encrypted the folder, and labeled it what they missed. Wasn't the first time someone underestimated her. At her old job, they called her Monica the red flag, because she'd flag system issues faster than management could spin them into learning opportunities. But she wasn't trying to be Cassandra, screaming into the void. She just wanted to prevent something avoidable from becoming catastrophic. Later that week, a client experienced a brief outage. Nothing headline-worthy, just enough for the account manager to loop Monica in for context. She mentioned the memo. The account manager nodded with pretend interest, then went back to monitoring LinkedIn impressions like nothing happened. She started getting funny looks. HR poked around. "How's morale? Do you feel aligned with SynerTech's future?" One even asked if she needed a mindfulness coach. That weekend, Monica walked her dog around the block 5 times just to burn off the rising edge of dread. Something was shifting. Not in the systems, she already knew those were brittle, but in the air, in the way her coworkers smiled too tightly or forwarded her Slack messages just for clarity. Still, she showed up Monday with a fresh coffee and tighter documentation. She added system screenshots, loopback simulations, and a preemptive fix script. She CC'd Brent, CC'd legal, even added a note. "This is not a resignation of duty. This is a risk elevation per policy 4.3.2b. It didn't matter. Brent replied 4 minutes later. No greeting, no signature. "Just let it go, Monica. You're too smart to waste energy like this." That was the moment she knew. The risk wasn't the code. It was the culture that would ignore it until something broke, and then blame the nearest woman who dared raise her voice. She didn't cry. She archived the email. Then she quietly started backing up her drive, not because she wanted revenge, because she knew they wouldn't survive what was coming. And someone, eventually, would want to understand how it all went wrong. The second outage came at 2:37 p.m. on a Thursday, the kind of timing that makes project managers sweat through their dry-cleaned button-ups. The hospital logistics platform in Phoenix glitched during a critical inventory sync, which meant 3 ambulances had to radio back for supplies that should have already been en route. The client's head of operations emailed SynerTech with the subject line, "Urgent, system reliability concerns." Monica saw the chain. She was looped late, 3 messages deep, after sales had offered the usual pre-canned apology. "We're experiencing a momentary lapse in data sync reliability, but our engineers are actively investigating." But they weren't. Not really. Brent had told the team earlier that week to minimize noise around edge case anomalies that could distract from growth alignment. Translation: if it wasn't on fire, pretend it was ambient candlelight. Still, Monica added the Phoenix incident to her report. Same root cause, same legacy handler, same ticking time bomb. This time, she didn't just include charts and logs, she outlined a simple 3-step mitigation, complete with workload estimates and fallback contingencies. She color-coded the risk matrix and uploaded it to the internal dashboard, tagging Brent and the lead engineer. She didn't expect thanks, but she also didn't expect the message Brent posted in the next morning's stand-up. They were mid-Zoom, everyone half listening, cameras mostly off. Brent's voice was syrupy as usual, sliding through his key wins list like he was trying to seduce a tech's audience. He paused, looked directly into the camera, smile still plastered on like dried glue. "And I just want to say, some of us come to work with solutions. Others just love documenting problems." A few awkward chuckles. Monica blinked, unsure whether he was talking about her. Then he said it. "Take Monica here. She's been very thorough lately. But we don't want to scare our clients with internal drama, do we? Let's keep things forward-focused. Positivity only." Char's little avatar was suddenly in the call. She wasn't part of this team, but there she was, camera on, nodding, tight-lipped. Monica didn't say a word, but her hands were trembling under the desk. She was so stunned she didn't even hear the rest of the meeting. Just the sound of her blood thudding in her ears and Brent saying the word positivity like it was some kind of holy relic, as if the system would hold together longer if she smiled hard enough. After the call, he barely had time to close her tabs before her Slack pinged. "HR quick chat?" Conference room C was already booked. A water bottle on the table, a stack of tissues, and a half-wilted ficus plant that hadn't moved since SynerTech Series C round. "Just a check-in," the HR rep chirped, sliding into the seat across from her. "How are you feeling about your role these days?" Monica looked at her. Really looked. The kind of look that asks, "You seriously going to do this right now?" "I'm doing my job," she said. "The system issues I've been flagging aren't right," the rep cut in. "We're just concerned about alignment." Monica felt the floor shift beneath her. "We've noticed a pattern of, persistent negativity. Fixation on technical minutiae. System failure isn't minutiae." The rep offered a practiced, pitying smile. "The kind they teach in HR boot camps, empathy light. There's a difference between identifying problems and being a good cultural fit, Monica. And lately, Brent and I both agree you've struggled with synergy." Synergy. She wanted to laugh or scream or both, but her voice came out even. "So I'm being fired because I documented a system risk. We prefer the term offboarding. This is a transition, not a punishment. Think of it as an opportunity to find an environment better suited to your analytical strengths." Handed her the folder. NDA severance exit protocol. She didn't sign, not yet. She walked back to her desk. Her login was already locked, her Slack access revoked. A cardboard box sat waiting with her name in marker like a schoolchild's lunch. Her team avoided eye contact, a few whispered apologies. One senior dev just muttered shit under his breath as she passed. No one said it out loud, but they all knew. Brent had marked her. And now she was gone. At the elevator, she heard the fake cheer erupt from the break room. Sheet cake. They were doing the farewell party. 2 slices of marble sugar and some cringy poster that said "Good luck on your next chapter." She didn't bother stepping in, but Brent did. He caught up to her as the elevator doors slid open, holding a plate with a plastic fork stabbed into the frosting. "Hey," he said, smirking. "No hard feelings, right?" Monica stared straight ahead. "I mean next time," he said with a wink. "Bring me a solution, not a problem." Monica didn't cry in the Uber. She didn't speak either. She just stared out the window like it owed her an apology, watching the city pass in blurs of gray and brake lights. Her box sat on her lap, rattling every time the driver hit a pothole. Inside it, the sad debris of a career, 2 stress balls, 1 chipped coffee mug, a stack of spiral notebooks full of warnings no one read. Let herself in the door of her apartment without turning on the lights. The silence felt too clean, too dishonest, like the world had just carried on spinning without noticing that someone had been publicly gutted at 11:06 a.m. in conference room C while everyone else scarfed grocery store cake. She set the box down on the kitchen counter, then just stood there, gripping the edge like the laminate might hold her up. Her inbox access was already revoked. She didn't need it. She had her own archive. Password protected, duplicated, dated. She opened her laptop and clicked into a folder buried 3 layers deep, labeled what they missed. Inside, screenshots, Slack threads, time-stamped code notes, risk matrix PDFs, the original memo, the one with the vendor escalation and her personal annotations. She'd sent it twice, once to Brent directly, once CC'd to compliance. 0 replies, just HR's boot to the ribs 3 days later, delivered with a tissue box and a coaching smile. She read through her own words like they were written by someone else. Someone steadier. Someone who thought evidence would protect her. It hadn't. The rage didn't come all at once. It trickled in. A slow flood under the skin. She was humiliated, yes, but beneath that, something colder was crystallizing. Not revenge. Not yet. But the understanding that she'd spent 2 years speaking into a void, and the void had finally spoken back. You don't belong here. Her phone buzzed on the counter. Fiona heard what happened. You okay? She stared at it. Fiona, her college roommate, her emergency contact, the one who once bought her noise-canceling headphones during Monica's first stint in open-plan hell. Fiona had been at Vectoris for the last 6 months, lured away by the promise of real engineering culture and a leadership team that didn't speak in hashtags. Monica typed one word, no. The screen flashed with Fiona's incoming call before she could set it down. Talk to me, Fiona said, voice sharp but softening. What the hell did they do? Monica exhaled, slow and ragged. They called me negative. Jesus. They called it a culture misalignment. They gave me that too, Fiona said, right before I left. Same Brent? Yeah. What happened? Monica hesitated. Then she opened her laptop again, screen casting pale blue across the dark kitchen. I flagged a system risk. Real one. Infrastructure level, cross-client cascade potential. It's tied to an old vendor module they never offboarded properly. You flagged it to who? Brent, twice. The second time I built out a mitigation plan, 3 steps. Minimal downtime. Color-coded matrix, Fiona. I used their language. And made a joke about it in front of the whole team. Said I was scaring clients and needed to stay positive. Oh my God. HR was already in the call. Of course they were. They marched me into conference room C like I was an intern who farted in front of the CFO. Said I wasn't a culture fit. Handed me cake on the way out. There was silence on the other end. Not awkward. Not passive. It was the silence of someone deciding what to do with the information you just gave them. I want you to come in, Fiona said. No. Just to talk. I'm not looking for a job, Fiona. Good, I'm not offering one. I want you to walk me through it. Show me what you showed them. Why? Because I know Brent. And I know SynerTech. And if what you're saying is real, and I know it is, they just kicked out the only person who knew how close they were to blowing their own foot off. Monica sat down slowly, hands still resting on the corner of her laptop. You're at Vectoris. Still am. I'm not in the mood to beg for anything. You won't have to, Fiona said. Bring your folder. 30 minutes and a whiteboard. That's all I'm asking. Monica didn't answer for a long beat. Then she said, I'm not coming for pity. And I'm not dressing up. Good, Fiona said, because I don't want polished. I want pissed. I want facts. Come in and show me what Brent was too busy memeing to read. The call ended. Monica closed the folder and stared into the screen, watching her own reflection twist slightly in the dark. She wasn't ready to be angry, not yet. But something inside her was beginning to move, something with sharp edges. She stood, went to her closet, and pulled out the blazer she used to wear to vendor audits. The one with the faint coffee stain on the cuff. She folded it over the back of her chair, sat down again. Then she opened a new file. Title, Systemic Risk, SynerTech Core Faults Confidential Analysis Author. M. Flores. Below it, she typed her first sentence. What they missed wasn't just code. It was the part where someone warned them. Vectoris HQ sat like a glass blade across the skyline, angled, modern, and indifferent to bullshit. Monica walked through the revolving doors with a manila folder tucked under one arm and a whiteboard marker already in her pocket. She wore no makeup, no heels, and no need to explain herself anymore. The lobby buzzed with quiet, high-efficiency purpose. No branded beanbags, no slogan posters pretending to be values. Just slate tile, brushed steel, and the low hum of people who were actually paid to think. Fiona met her at the elevator, already holding a tablet and an espresso. She didn't ask how Monica slept, didn't offer condolences, just handed her the drink and said, "Second floor." I booked the war room. The war room was really just a large conference room with too many screens and one glorious stretch of uninterrupted whiteboard. Monica didn't sit. She walked to the board, uncapped her marker, wrote two things in block letters. Risk router 1.2.7 breach liability change. She circled both. Turned to Fiona. "I'm going to talk fast. Stop me if I go too technical." Fiona pulled up a chair. "You have 30. Go." Monica started with the 2021 vendor contract. The old one. The one Brent never read, much less restructured. It had two hooks in it, one for escalation clauses, one for indemnity rollback if deprecated code was still in use. Both were still live. Both had been ignored. She pulled up a visual architecture map she'd mocked up the night before, low fidelity but surgical in its precision. She highlighted the live dependency that routed traffic through a legacy handler not updated since Q4 of the previous year. "This is the soft underbelly," she said, tapping the screen. "And this is what fails next time a client runs a bulk transaction over 30 endpoints." "Client side?" Fiona asked. "Doesn't matter, it's on their infrastructure. The liability routes back through SynerTech's backbone. If this breaks under federal usage, they are in breach of contract, of SLA, of platform trust, and the vendor already pulled out of proactive support." Their clause was clear. If code remains in use past 18 months without audit, indemnity is void. Brent acknowledged that in a kickoff email I have in this folder. She tapped the manila packet once. Time-stamped. Forwardable. Fiona swiveled her tablet. "How does this affect their GovCon account?" "They're one failover away from an audit trigger." That landed. Fiona blinked once. "You're sure?" Monica wrote 3 more lines on the board. GSA SLA Uptime Enforcement Multi-Client Downtime Chain Revocation Clause, 4.1b, then she circled the last one. That clause is a kill switch. It's in the original procurement docs. It allows any federal client to terminate within 10 business days if systemic risk is confirmed through third-party audit. They buried that in page 97 of the legal packet. I only found it because I read everything. Brent didn't. "Holy shit," Fiona whispered. "No. Just predictable," Monica said. "The logs from the last 2 outages already hint at the fault line. If they hit it again, government client will walk, and so will anyone else who reads the filings." Fiona stood slowly. "Wait here." Monica didn't ask where she was going. She erased part of the board and redrew a simplified traffic flow chart, adding notes for fallback protocols she'd suggested, and that Brent had ignored in favor of an internal alignment initiative. 10 minutes passed. The door opened. 2 people walked in, both in dark suits, both looking like they had stopped halfway through something important because someone told them this might be more important. "This is her?" the man asked. "Monica Flores," Fiona said. "Risk integration, former SynerTech." Monica nodded once. "Hi, show us," the woman said, stepping forward. "Start from the top." Monica didn't flinch. She ran it back from the first outage to the contract clause. This time slower, more deliberate. She kept her tone even, her eyes steady. She didn't apologize for the jargon, but she translated where it mattered. She didn't editorialize. She didn't gloat. She just told them what they'd refused to hear from inside the machine. By the time she finished, the woman was tapping her pen against her lip like it was Morse code for "oh no." "Do they know?" the man asked. Monica raised an eyebrow. "Brent. He thinks good vibes prevent system failure." "No, I mean, does SynerTech Legal know what you know?" "They will," Fiona said, but not from her. The woman glanced at Fiona. "I want a full internal copy of this mapped against our asset review. Can we get legal and engineering on a call by EOD?" "I'll book it," Fiona said. The man turned to Monica. "Would you be willing to present this to the board?" Monica blinked. "Excuse me, we're meeting in DC, Monday. Fiona's flying out Sunday." Monica looked at Fiona, who hadn't moved. Fiona's voice was low. "You've got receipts, Monica. All they've got is a ballooning liability and an empty chair where competence used to sit." Monica didn't answer right away. She capped the marker, slid the folder back under her arm, and picked up her now cold espresso. Then she looked the man dead in the eye and said, "Send me the flight info." The boardroom in DC didn't feel like a table. It felt like a battlefield dressed in walnut veneer. 12 chairs, 9 occupied. Every seat had eyes sharp enough to cut through quarterly reports and smiling lies. Monica sat at the far end, a pitcher of still water sweating beside her laptop, her folder already open like a scalpel waiting to slice. Fiona was at her side, silent, but not shielding. She didn't need to. Monica wasn't a witness anymore. She was the exhibit. "Let's begin," said the chair, Alina Morrow, woman whose name alone had made 2 mid-level banks fold a merger attempt last fall. She nodded toward Monica. "We've read the brief. Walk us through your conclusion." Monica stood, didn't ask for clicker, didn't open a slide deck. She used the wall-mounted screen like she'd used the whiteboard in the war room, methodical, clean, devastating. She remapped SynerTech's infrastructure again, but this time she framed it like what it was. A beautiful house built on termite-infested wood, with someone like Brent tossing gasoline instead of blueprints. She highlighted the call dependencies, circled the routing fault, then presented 2 emails, one from the vendor, dated 15 months ago, warning of unsupported usage, and one from Brent, dated 6 weeks later, replying not a priority right now, let's circle back. Monica didn't editorialize. Her tone was calm, clinical, but her precision stung sharper than any insult. She ended with the GSA clause, Revocation 4.1b, and read it aloud. In the event that systemic infrastructural risk is identified and not mitigated within 30 days of first awareness, the government reserves the right to terminate contract engagement, with no fiscal penalty or remaining obligation. She set the tablet down. They've already exceeded the awareness window. Twice. Room fell quiet. A man from Vectoris Legal leaned forward, thumbing through the packet Monica had printed for everyone. "The language is clean, no ambiguity. Would our audit team be able to validate systemic risk without their cooperation?" The COO asked. Fiona nodded before Monica could answer. "We have the logs, vendor confirmation, and she has a signed escalation record that went ignored. Risk was documented. Systemic and structural." Lena folded her hands. "Which contract is currently bound by that clause?" "Phoenix Medical Logistics," Monica said, "the federal distributor for regional emergency medical equipment." The general counsel blinked. "If they're spooked, they'll terminate," Fiona said, quietly, "without lawsuit. But the signal it sends will echo." Another board member, the one who hadn't said a word yet, a man with a government badge tucked just barely into view, leaned back in his chair and said, "It's already chatter. If they pull out, 3 more accounts will follow." "Then what?" the CFO asked. Alina turned slowly toward M&A. "Then," the head of mergers said, voice soft, "they become vulnerable. Fast." Vectoris Legal was already sketching out a risk acquisition scenario on a legal pad, whispering timelines, liabilities, audit windows. Monica stood silent as the entire machine revved up around her, not skeptical, not dismissive, not smirking like Brent, but deadly serious. No one told her to calm down. No one asked if she'd misread something. They listened. Because they understood what Brent never did, that when someone points out where the foundation is cracking, you don't fire them, you hand them a hard hat and ask where to start. One board member, a former systems engineer, spoke for the first time. "What's the likelihood that Brent even knows what clause 4.1b is?" Monica's lips twitched. "Thinks systemic risk means a bad news cycle." Low chuckles, the kind laced with venom. "Do we believe they're capable of absorbing this blow and course-correcting?" Alina asked. "No," Fiona said, Brent's still in the chair. "Their most senior engineer left 3 weeks ago. They're too far upstream and their lifeboats are on fire." Silence again. Calculating, cold. Then Alina leaned back and said, "Prepare an offer." And a nodded without hesitation. General counsel looked across the table at Monica. "You willing to assist with transition documentation, even if it gets adversarial?" Monica didn't blink. "I've already drafted it." That got a smile. Not warm, but respectful. As the room began to hum with low conversation, timelines, draft language, who to notify and when, Monica stayed in her chair, hands folded, listening. She didn't speak unless asked. She didn't need to. She'd already said everything. Now the professionals were doing what she had begged Brent to consider. As the meeting began to break, Alina tapped the table once. "Let's send them a message," she said, rising to her feet. "They won't understand until it's too late." It started with silence. The kind of silence that doesn't feel peaceful, it feels surgical. The kind that means someone important just stepped away from the table and didn't say why. At SynerTech, the Phoenix Medical Logistics account, normally chatty, almost needy, went radio silent. No daily syncs, No billing pings, no feedback on the latest deployment, just nothing for 3 days. Brent brushed it off at first. They're probably doing internal review cycles. That team's a mess. I've dealt with them for years. But his voice cracked a little when he said it. And when the monthly service report came in empty, no uptime requests, no P2 tickets, no platform logins, ordered the account manager to reach out aggressively. He didn't like the phrase that came back. We're currently evaluating ongoing platform risk. Then came the pullout. A secondary partner, Small Trace, an API licensing provider that sat on 3 of SynerTech's mid-tier bundles, sent a cold, lawyer-slick letter. We are electing to terminate our mutual integration agreement under Section 6, citing unaddressed systemic infrastructure exposure, and threw the paper across the room. They're bluffing, he muttered. They're just sniffing for better terms. This is negotiation theater. He called an emergency all hands. Not the usual kind with awkward icebreakers and that one guy from marketing who always tried too hard. No, this one had an air of sweaty, forced control. Brent stood in front of a slide that said staying resilient in times of transition and tried to spin failure into inspiration. Some people, he said, pacing like a Dollar Tree Steve Jobs, want to stir up drama. People who have left. People who didn't believe in our mission. Negative energy like that lingers if we let it. Monica's name never crossed his lips. But it didn't have to. Everyone knew. You could feel it in the pause. The forced eye contact. The shriveled cheerleader tone. He didn't sound like a leader. He sounded like a kid trying to charm his way out of detention. Wrapped up with the most unconvincing. We're stronger than ever closer anyone had ever heard, and bolted from the room before anyone could ask questions. Meanwhile, in a quiet corner of the 3rd floor, where junior devs lived on cold brew and prayer, a guy named Tyler was digging through old ticket logs. He wasn't looking for drama. He was just trying to understand why a sandboxed environment kept throwing 502s when it hit the risk routing module, scrolled past a sea of green flags, then stopped. Ticket hash 4732 system risk memo M. Flores marked non-actionable dated 6 months ago. Tyler opened it, read, blinked. The memo was crystal clear. The failure point, the vendor terms, the fallback patch Monica had outlined, all of it. It was like watching a movie you'd never seen but somehow already knew the ending to, and the villain was your own boss. He didn't tell anyone. Not right away. Just printed it, highlighted 3 lines, tucked it into his hoodie pocket. By Friday, the engineers had stopped pretending nothing was wrong. The backlog was flooded with integration errors. Clients were postponing renewals or pausing engagements pending internal review. Legal was circling like a confused hawk, asking for audit trails that no one could reconstruct because the only person who understood them had been walked out with a slice of marble cake. Char stopped making eye contact. In the kitchen, someone whispered, she warned us. Across town, Monica sat in a coworking space with a different kind of view, one with soundproof walls and better coffee. Her inbox now had a folder labeled Vectoris Acquisition Prep. It had 3 subfolders: SynerTech Infrastructure, Client Contract Weak Points, Transition Scenario Mapping. Every day, Fiona pinged her once. Just a single line like clockwork, all green. Good, and Monica would reply, all green. She didn't gloat, didn't post cryptic LinkedIn updates or subtweet the downfall. She just prepared. Every contract clause, every tech mapping note, every phrase Brent had waved off with a condescending smile, it was all in the file now. The kind of file that lives longer than applause. And back at SynerTech, as Brent locked himself in a glass office full of spin and denial, tremors began to shake loose the foundation he'd sworn was unshakable. Because tremors don't announce themselves. They build, quietly. And then they crack. It landed like a grenade with a smiley face sticker on it. The press release dropped at 9:00 a.m. sharp. Vectoris announces intent to acquire SynerTech in Strategic Asset Recovery Initiative. Terms undisclosed. That phrase, asset recovery, hit SynerTech like a gut punch from a gloved hand. Slack channels erupted. Phones buzzed in cubicles like someone had released bees. One panicked product manager messaged legal, "Is this real? Are we being bought?" The answer came 27 minutes later in an all-staff email from the CFO. Dry, terse, red-eyed from whatever hell they'd just walked out of. We are in active dialogue with Vectoris leadership regarding next phase corporate strategy. Further information forthcoming. Brent didn't show up until almost 11. He walked in with his usual too expensive coffee and the ghost of a smirk, like he thought this was just a misunderstanding that would clear up after his afternoon spin class. He called an impromptu leadership sync. 10 minutes in, he was already in spin mode. This is a hostile maneuver, a smear campaign dressed as strategy. Vectoris is panicking, afraid of our momentum. This is posturing, plain and simple. Someone from finance asked, so? It's not real? Brent didn't answer, just pivoted into a rant about market manipulation and regulatory posturing, tossing in enough jargon to choke a compliance officer. But the rest of the room had already seen the filings. They'd seen what their own clients were doing, pulling out, going dark, demanding audits. They knew. The walls were folding in. Legal tried to rally, digging up last year's M and a defense protocol, running valuation models that didn't survive 5 minutes under real scrutiny. With Phoenix Medical gone and small traces pullout still bleeding through revenue projections, SynerTech's leverage wasn't just low. It was extinct. And then the bomb under Brent's chair finally ticked loud enough for everyone to hear. An internal doc leaked, probably from someone in compliance trying to get ahead of the legal blast radius. A list of Vectoris transition consultants, her name down, Monica Flores external consultant, risk and systems audit, some read it twice. Others didn't need to. The timestamp on the document said it had been finalized 5 days earlier, before Brent had even stopped calling the situation optics drama. The senior engineer who'd printed Monica's old risk memo back in Part 6. He posted one line in Slack, and you fired her. Legendary. By 2:00 p.m., Brent had vanished into his office. Door closed, blinds half drawn like that could block out the trajectory, now aimed directly at his career's soft underbelly. At Vectoris HQ, Monica was in a glass-paneled workspace, elbows deep in final review docs. Fiona slid a box of takeout next to her without a word. Thai noodles and a bubble tea Monica hadn't asked for but desperately needed. Monica, said a voice behind her. She turned to see Callum, one of the Vectoris execs from M&A, young, hungry, and allergic to filler words. We're going live with the final call tomorrow, he said, boardroom pitch. Elena's presenting. Monica nodded. You have all the clauses mapped, down to the semicolons, he said. Every client trigger, every liability handoff. Good, he hesitated. One more thing. Optional, of course, she looked up. Elena wants to know if you'd like to attend the SynerTech board meeting. Monica didn't speak. She just uncapped her pen, started taking notes. The SynerTech boardroom looked smaller than Monica remembered. She hadn't been here since her onboarding orientation 3 years ago, back when she still believed in things like career growth and professional respect. Back when they handed her a branded notebook and told her she'd make waves. Well, here she was. She entered through the east door behind the Vectoris delegation, 6 people in suits that didn't wrinkle and smiles that didn't move. Monica wore black, not dramatic black, surgical black. She carried no bag, no laptop, just a slim folder tucked under her arm and a mind honed like a scalpel. The room was too quiet. The SynerTech board was already seated, 2 founders, the CFO, 3 outside investors, and Brent, sitting like a paper crown atop a collapsing kingdom. His tan looked overconfident. His eyes didn't. Vectoris chair, Elena Morrow, nodded at the board with the kind of poise that didn't ask for permission. She took the lead seat. Monica remained standing. Brent broke first. He launched into a smile-riddled monologue about regrettable communication breakdowns and opportunistic leveraging of transient service anomalies. He used every buzzword except the one rotting in the center of the table: failure. Then, just as he started explaining how temporary client instability was being actively mitigated, Vectoris General Counsel, a silver-haired man who hadn't blinked in 6 minutes, slid a folder across the table to Monica. She opened it, took her time, pulled out one sheet, then another, then a third. Brent, she said softly, not looking up. Page 3, read the date, he blinked. Excuse me, the date. Page 3, read it aloud, he hesitated. The silence was surgical. He took the page with a trembling hand, eyes scanning the top. March 15th. What year? He licked his lips. Last year. Monica stepped forward, placing the sheet flat on the table for all to see. Risk memo, infrastructure breach potential. Signed by me. Titled escalated priority. Marked as non-actionable in your reply. I don't recall. GC slid another sheet across the table. Another timestamp. Another risk memo. Monica didn't flinch. This one was the Phoenix trigger, she said. Predicted exactly what caused your federal client to walk. I didn't sign off on that. Brent's voice cracked like old drywall. You did, said Elena. She pushed the final document across, digitally, in Slack, timestamped. The printout includes your lol will circle back comment. Brent looked around the table like someone might save him. No one moved. Monica remained standing. Calm, controlled. Alina turned to the board. Vectoris' offer is based on a post-client exodus valuation, which, to be clear, was accelerated by your internal decision-making. She paused, or lack thereof. The founder spoke up, voice flat with disbelief. You ignored her. Brent's jaw opened, shut, opened again. Monica finally sat, not to speak, just to mark the moment. The CFO whispered something to legal. Brent tried one more time. This wasn't deliberate. We were streamlining workflows. You ignored her. Founder repeated, cold now. And now we're owned. Brent stood as if to argue, then sat back down when no one looked at him. Monica didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She simply reached into her folder, pulled one last page, and slid it toward the center of the table. A bulleted list. Every system warning she had documented. Every risk that had now detonated. Every line signed and ignored. At the bottom, her original subject line from the first email still burned into her memory. Risk exposure requires urgent review. Under it, in Brent's response, the phrase, let's not overreact, culture first. Monica sat back and said nothing. The call came at 8:01 a.m., Monday. A plain email from SynerTech Legal, subject line, confirmation, final transition executed. Attached, the signed agreement, the severance summaries, the new leadership chart with all the old rot surgically cut out. By 9:00 a.m., the sale was public. Vectoris has acquired SynerTech in a strategic absorption of critical infrastructure and accounts. Terms remain confidential. Transition effective immediately. The words were clean, sanitized, but inside, the reality was anything but gentle. The transition call began at 10:00 a.m. sharp. Every executive from both companies joined. Brent logged in 6 minutes late. His video flickered on and off twice before settling, the bags under his eyes now eclipsed only by the panic behind them. He was wearing the same quarter zip from the Friday meltdown. No blazer, no script. The Vectoris side was all order. Alina chaired, legal present, M and a nodding silently. Monica sat off camera, muted, her notes already organized into sections. No redlining left to do, no more warnings to deliver. This was a coronation, just not his. Brent tried to assert himself early, throwing phrases like integration fluidity and retaining institutional memory, but it was clear no one was taking him seriously. Even his own CFO wouldn't make eye contact. Then came the final blow. Vectoris General Counsel turned to the SynerTech side and said, flatly, per Section 5 of the finalized agreement, Brent Thomas is to be relieved of duties effective immediately. This clause was non-negotiable. The screen shifted. Brent froze, then tried to speak. Wait, hold on. Nobody informed me you were informed, the SynerTech GC cut in. 2 days ago, email formal notice. Signed acknowledgement from your assistant. Brent looked off screen. His lips moved, maybe calling to someone. No one responded. Then the screen blinked. His camera shut off. Just like that, Brent Thomas, VP of Culture, crusher of dissent, of ignored memos, was gone. In the silence that followed, Monica unmuted. I'll begin today, she said. There are 3 fault points that need immediate review. My team has patch proposals ready. No applause, no praise, just heads nodding, contracts uploading, permissions shifting. She was in, and she wasn't coming back as the woman they fired. She was coming in as the one riding the postmortem. Fiona passed her a secure login. Vectoris credentials, top-level clearance. Monica opened the system she once warned them about, SynerTech's crumbling risk router, and started the stabilization process. No ceremony, no confetti, just clean, controlled order. For the first time in months, the system ran smooth. At 11:47 a.m., an internal camera in the SynerTech lobby captured Brent being escorted out. Security, polite but firm. One small box in his arms, a tumbler, a half-used planner. His phone already reassigned. He turned once toward the glass, toward the rows of desks now watching in practiced silence, and caught a glimpse of the corner office. Monica sat there, the reflection catching her eyes just right. She didn't wave, didn't blink. She looked up from her laptop and said, with the soft gravity of someone who never needed to raise her voice, I brought a solution. You chose the problem. Thanks for joining the fun, you office survivors. Subscribe for more switch-flicking drama. Let's make your former coworkers sweat.